And straight from the Richmond Airport and right into your living rooms, it's time for another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, back from Atlanta, Georgia, where today we are going to break down the JMU Dukes 14-7 win in front of 19,256 real-life human beings at a wonderfully and meticulously maintained Center Park Stadium in scenic downtown Atlanta. We're going to get to everything that happened yesterday, as well as look forward to next week's contest at home at noon at Bridgeport Stadium. So a jam-packed episode. So we're going to get right to our sponsors so we can get to right to where you want to get to today, which is the analysis of what happened yesterday. First and foremost, thank our friends from Skyline Financial Partners. Remember that you can empower your family for lasting financial success at skylinefinancialpartners.com. Champions Drive Bourbon. Remember that every purchase of Champions Drive Bourbon goes to support student athletes and JMU's pursuit of championships. Where's Woody? 25% off the entire Where's Woody store by entering SoundOff25 as a promo code. Remember that lasts for 48 hours after our show. Purple Nation, now with a store in Midlothian, as well as in the west end of Richmond, Northern Virginia, as well as in the coast. Shoker Enterprises, appreciate the support of Joe Shoker and all of his philanthropic efforts that he does to support JMU, as well as many causes in the community. The Dead Meat Society, remember you can join the movement for grilling enthusiasts at deadmeatsociety.com. Outdoor Kitchen Creations, learn how to take your outdoor kitchen to the next level by visiting backyardtrends.com. And then Valley Road Vineyards, the official Virginia farm winery of JMU Sound Off. The next time you're on I-64 between Harrisonburg and Richmond, stop by and tell them you heard about Valley Road from JMU Sound Off, and you'll get 50% off your wine flight. And with that, we're going to bring in Afton Sadamond, Michael Angelista, and Taylor Atkins. Before Michael and I rant on everything that we saw in Georgia yesterday, I want to welcome Taylor and Afton to the show. Guys, you had a little bit of a different football experience on Saturday, going down to Lane Stadium, seeing Virginia Tech take on Wake. Going to give you a chance to have the floor early. Just your thoughts on the day yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like Taylor would probably feel the same way as me. Kind of happy I didn't have to go to that game that happened in Atlanta. Because the Tech game was actually a good game. Might not be the best football of Tech and Wake, but it was a close game. But me and Taylor both kind of felt like it just wasn't a good game to go to for you guys, Georgia State, JMU. But the Tech game was fun, and me and Taylor realized a theme that's going on. So I've been to 4 Power 4 games this year so far. I've been to NC State, I've been to Louisville, I've been to Kentucky, now I've been to Tech. And one thing that I noticed that I've taken for granted is the tailgating scene at JMU. I thought that it was just the norm, how big everybody feels about the tailgating aspect in Harrisonburg. Because when you go 25-minute walk away to the AUBC, you have student lots packed all the way from Bridgeport, all the way 25 minutes walk away. When I was at Tech yesterday, we tailgated about 10 minutes away from the stadium. And like it was a fun tailgate, don't get me wrong. But there was no hype around it at all. When we went to Kentucky, it's a big SEC game. They played Ole Miss. There was just one. It was a huge lot. There's one big lot. But that was it. There was nothing else. No other tailgating. NC State, there's a little bit of tailgating by the stadium. And Louisville, all they had was the alley. That's it, which was cool. But what I've noticed is JMU's tailgating is just top tier, and we can't take that for granted.
Yeah, and I didn't really get out of the JMU bubble until I went to UTSA. There we go. And I don't think I had an appreciation for what JMU was until I really got to go around the country and see a lot of other schools. I mean, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, Baylor, A&M, Texas. You know, there was kind of this assumption that the tailgating and the game day atmosphere you see at these schools would just be on a whole nother level. And I know Tech is going through a down year, but it just I think what JMU has is something people don't really, because they just assume that it's so much bigger and better elsewhere. There's more people. I mean, bigger stadiums, more people, but the level of tailgating and just the density of it, JMU does it as well as anywhere that I have been in my travels. And another thing that Afton and I were talking about is, I think we take for granted that, 7,000-8,000 student tickets are gone within 10 minutes. When I was at UTSA, I think the student average for the conference in attendance was 2,300. I think Marshall led Conference USA at the time with 4,500. And I think we really take for granted that we have that many students wanting to come. Another thing that I noticed in Afton, I don't know if you could see it because I think you were on the side opposite of me at Lane Stadium, was Virginia Tech's student section emptied at halftime. And I think it was a 3-point game at halftime. Now, again, Virginia Tech's having a down year, and there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of them would have stayed. But, I think some of the accusations that we give our students, even I've given our students, I want to give a little grace to it. But having said that, for any students or folks listening, you got a great product on the field. Every year that we are this good, it's not guaranteed that the next. And, if we are able to match that intensity of our student section for an entire year, that's going to play a big role, especially in these next 2 games, one that is on national TV against Louisiana this coming weekend. And then tomorrow we should learn what the game time channel and all of that is for Old Dominion. So glad to see Louisiana sell out again in the student section early last week. So it should be a great crowd. Whiteout. Afton's already dressed for the whiteout. So let's go Dukes.
There you go. Well, I also saw some people commenting on how Maryland's student section left pretty early, and they're having a pretty good year too. So this seems like an issue across the board. Georgia State didn't have a student section from what I saw at the game, but we'll get to that in a minute. I want to go, Michael, before you, I want to start with some positive things because I have a feeling this could go a different direction in a minute. From yesterday's trip down to Atlanta, and really all my positives start with people. First of all, I want to wish a very happy Sound Off birthday to your father. It was awesome getting to experience the game with him. More importantly, it was just really cool to see how much he clearly enjoyed being at the game with you. Had a great dinner with him and Way and Way's son last night. That was awesome. Want to give some shout outs though. Don and Georgia Anderson, got to see their family yesterday. Always great to see them. I don't think you're going to find more passionate supporters of JMU than Don and Georgia, and just awesome getting a chance to spend some time with them. Got a chance to talk to JC Evans' father for a while, listens to the show. Nice to meet him, as well as Pat McMurtry's dad. We got a chance to meet Xavier Holmes' family yesterday, who also listens to the show, as well as Evan Bushon's father, Matt. Spent some time with President Jim, Jeff Polglace, Nick Langridge, Matt and Mallory Roan. It was just Stephen Alice. It was a reunion like all away trips are. And despite what was an anxious, intense game on the field, when you get to have a weekend where you see so many passionate JMU supporters who made the trip down and wanted to lend their support to a team. And I use all of this as a lead in to say, I really do believe the fan support that was there from the JMU Nation mattered in that game yesterday. We heard some of that in the post-game comments. So want to start with a positive. But now the floor is set for just before we get to the game. My initial interaction with Georgia State yesterday at Old Turner Field, Center Park Stadium, was going to my seat, and we'll post the video on our social channels, of just giant blocks of concrete that had fallen down, not just to the side, but directly in the walkway paths to where you would get to your seat. That's after, when you're walking on the sidewalks into the stadium, you were telling me to watch my ankles because you were concerned I was going to break an ankle potentially going in. I think for all the conversation about tailgating, did you see more than 12 people tailgate? Because I don't personally did. I thought the biggest action in the tailgate experience yesterday outside of our little section was at the Publix. Shout out Publix. Still love you. I have a sponsor. The floor is yours, Michael. Yeah, I don't know which way you want to start, but the brain melting train horn, the DJ.
There's so many things that we can talk about, but let me just set the premise here. So I think it was a tale of 2 weekends, right? And as you brought it up in the beginning, shout out to just the JMU community in general, right? Scooter, Alex, Mia. You mentioned Way. We had a fantastic weekend with him and Landon. Seeing Joe, seeing Delvin, so many awesome people. Had a great time. My dad had a blast. We had a boys' weekend. Took him down to Atlanta and just like celebrated his birthday. Everyone thought he was 42 and he was loving it. Like it was awesome. There was a Chris Brown concert when we got in. So let's just say downtown Atlanta was quite lively when we got in on Friday. The Georgia Aquarium was unbelievable. Had a great time. I was nerding out with the whale sharks. I got to see Katie Harper there, who was having a great time as well. But do you know where nothing was going on and nothing was happening? It was at Georgia State's Center Park Stadium.
Family weekend, by the way. Family weekend.
Say that again.
It was family weekend.
It was family weekend. I would have no idea. We'll talk about all the stuff on the field shortly, but everything about that program, about everything surrounding it, from the stadium to just all of it, can be defined in one word and one word only. It felt all very unserious. And yeah, to your point about tripping over cinder blocks, that random Chick-fil-A stand behind on the concourse where she was just by herself, and it was just strange seeing the old bleachers in the background and like all this concrete they just poured in to make I don't know what the Frankenstein of a stadium. It was just all so unserious. And my dad was like, this is weird. And I told my dad going in, I was like, this is going to be the most unique experience you'll ever see. And you can sit wherever you want, right? I don't think anyone had really assigned. I think people went.
I don't even think I looked at my tickets. I'm not entirely sure I ever saw a ticket section or number.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
You have no idea. And to your point, Publix was popping beforehand. But yeah, I think we'll talk about it on the field, but that experience being there was an eeriness to it. It reminded me of our old days when we go up to like UNH or maybe go up to Maine, where you got to bring your own juice, right? You got to bring your own energy. And I felt like, and I'm super proud of the team coming out and being 1-0, but there was a lot left on the field that we'll talk about that we need to fix. But I'm glad that this team this year, this program was able to stick it out, because I don't know if programs or teams in years past would have made it through that disaster that was yesterday.
Yeah, and I want to get Taylor and Afton's opinion just because I know they have some stuff to say about Georgia State too. But I want to set the context for this episode, though, is that yesterday, and this is something I think Taylor has done a tremendous job this year of pointing out, college football is great because it's chaotic. And we have seen chaos across, and that's not excusing anything that happened at JMU, but just to set the stage of there are no easy road games. And I think that adage really proved true yesterday. We saw what happened with Penn State yesterday at UCLA, a number of wild contexts, but we kind of could tell
Arkansas beating Texas State
coming out of the tunnel that they had. If you look at the video, both of us posted, Michael, of the team about to get out of the tunnel. They were trying to kind of hype themselves up. They had a boombox. I think that's what you call them these days, a giant speaker that they were holding. I'm old. They were trying to manufacture it in any way that they can, but it was about as quiet. We both remarked that it felt like there was significantly less atmosphere than even one of our spring games. So in fairness, it was a tough place to get hyped for. But Taylor, I want to bring you in because I know you have a lot to say about Georgia State and just the program and what it adds to the conference.
Well, it's it was our ULM game all over again. The good news is we get a win in the win column. I mean, I think it was the same thing. I was overlooking this game. It's one of the reasons why I accepted the offer we had friends who wanted to take us to a Virginia Tech game. And I'm like, if there's one weekend I can do it, it's the Georgia State game. I don't care. They're not a rival. I don't think they're very good. I didn't think that I was going to miss much. That's exactly why I didn't care to watch the ULM game last year. And I went to a music festival because I was like, it's ULM. They're the bottom of the conference. And, I've never been in the position where I've played a Division I football game, but I know we've had a lot of coaches and players come on here and say that when you go to these environments, whether it's ULM or New Hampshire in the FCS or Georgia State, there is some mental aspect that a lot of times the road team plays a terrible game. I can't explain it. I'm not excusing it. It is what it is. And I think the Georgia State game, there's a sunk cost. I think it's the sunk cost fallacy. This is one of the things I did retain in my business degree from James Madison. For those that aren't familiar with what the sunk cost fallacy is, the way it was represented in class one time was a professor held up a $20 bill and he said, I'm going to give this $20 bill to the highest bidder in the class. You can start at 1 penny. The only catch is whoever came in second place also loses their bid. Well, no one really understood what was going on at first. As someone said a penny, 2 pennies, $1, $10, $15, all of a sudden the bids got up to $20. Well, the person that just bid $19 goes, well, shoot, I'm going to be out 19, so I'm going to bid 21. I know it's not worth $21. Then all of a sudden the guy behind him goes, well, shoot, I'm going to lose 20, so I'm going to bid 22. And the reason I'm bringing this up, that sunk cost fallacy, that's how I see the Georgia State football program and really the athletic program at all. They have no fan base. No one attends their games. They do not bring any successful competitive national attention to the conference. Of course, occasionally they have a good win. They beat Vanderbilt. They beat Tennessee a few years ago, but I just look at this program and it's frustrating when I see programs like them or like ULM, when you keep hearing about their budget and financial issues where their budget is below some FCS programs, it's frustrating to be in a conference where you have programs like that care so little. And that has nothing to do with JMU's inability to execute on the field. I mean, we'll talk about that. The JMU problems yesterday were JMU problems and not Georgia State. But as we go through this new era of college athletics where everyone's kind of looking to side to side to try and figure out what is the next move geographically, conference-wise, just with all the new variables coming into college athletics, it just, as a fan, it's frustrating to have programs like Georgia State in the conference. But I believe Georgia State continues to pour money into their program because it's like, well, we've already done so much. We know it's not worth it. I know the $20 bill is not worth $21, but at this point, we're so far in, we're just going to keep doing the thing that we know doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And again, I feel for the student athletes who play in that environment, I think they have some fans who are passionate about the program. I know they have a very loud advocate on Twitter, and Ben Moore, who, does his best to defend the program. And he makes some good points yesterday. I'll give him credit. They have one of the lowest winning percentages in FBS football. And I know that leads to, kind of malaise in the fan base, but yeah, the lack of investment was hard to take. And it made for, whether it's Dave Riggert having to call his game from the press pucks where that was behind home plate, that creates a terrible vantage point from his perspective, or again, the brain melting train horn, which the likes of Katie Harper and others cited multiple times for what kind of, I would love to have, maybe we'll put this out. Is there a Georgia State fan that likes that train horn? I want to find the one, and I want them to say what they like about it. But let's get to the field, because we know our fans are obviously probably want us to rant just as much as they do about what took place yesterday. I kind of knew that we might be in for a little bit of a tough afternoon. On the opening kickoff, we get our first penalty of the game, which has been a theme. And if those of you who didn't see our keys to the game before the game, that's where I kind of want to go to you, Michael, first, because I think it's a good way to break down yesterday. What were your keys to yesterday's game, in case anybody didn't see them? And how did we do? Because I think that's a good way to start. And then we'll look at the offense and defense and kind of go through.
Yeah, I mean, the first piece I mentioned was we got to run the ball and control line of scrimmage. And looking at the game, net, I think we had 216 of probably the hardest yards we've seen in a while. Didn't need to be that hard. Rushing yards on the ground. We figured it out. And I loved what Coach Shezzy said at the post-game conference, where at the end of the game, we wanted to run the ball. We did not want to pass. He did not want to pass, and just want to take the air out of the ball and keep the ball on the ground. And we did that. The offensive line found a way against a 9-man, 10-man box, and we came out with a victory. So good job there. Number two was the quarterback run game. If anyone watched the Liberty game, the Georgia Southern game, even some of Weber State in the beginning, we were susceptible to the scramble. And I felt with watching some of Georgia State's game, they ran two quarterbacks. They stayed with Finley most of this game, but Camden Brown brings, I think, 10-8 speed right to the front. And I felt like he had that one scramble for 14 yards. I go, oh my gosh, here we go. So I thought we did a good job controlling the quarterbacks. Finley did have a pretty good game. I was very impressed with his at least intermediate to short-term passing game. And then lastly was we got to stop Ted Hurst. And I got to give him props because I think Justin Eaglin is like our most improved player on defense. But when he missed the pick six and he took it down and Hurst took it down the field for 52 yards, and shout out to Jacob Thomas with a shoestring tackle, because they came out of that possession with 0 points. I was nervous because once you get Hurst going, he is an SEC. He is an all-world receiver. He's like 6'4", runs fat, you name it. And then I think we did a good job shutting him down. They had that one screen play on the other side that I think there was a blown block that could have went for 6. So overall, when you look at it, man, maybe I should have been better with my keys to the game, because I thought we did relatively well. But what we did not do well, the penalties. We had what? 9
That was
penalties.
my key. That was my key.
Yeah, that was good. I'll give you that, John.
Yeah,
that was 100%. And I thought we would get it right. We were going into this game. We're looking into this. We felt good about ourselves. We were getting better week over week. I was mentioning the wide receivers. This is our first time in this program. The penalty, the chemistry is getting better. But 9 penalties for 90 yards to start at that kickoff was just deflating, because we'd have a 15-yard run taken back. We would have a 10-yard pass taken back. So it just took the air out of the ball. And that was just so hard to watch. And then even offensively, right? Well, let's just get right into it. Our inability to throw the ball down the field was why this game looked so difficult. And I talked about it last year. Last year's team, I kind of joked around. We made easy things hard last year. It felt like to complete a pass or a hitch or a run, it was difficult to watch. But taking bad sacks in tough situations was inexcusable. There was that one time we were in field goal range. We take a 7-yard sack. I felt like we were force feeding Wayne Knight into the flats when we had guys going down the field. We could not hit a crossing route to save our life. And for Coach Chesney to mention, we were running that intentionally because we were beating them because they were just playing man, but we couldn't hit it, was really tough. And again, I might be biased, but I have an opportunity to be on the field and just seeing some of our receivers down the field seemingly by themselves at times and us take a bad play or whatever, that was disheartening. And we just got to do better at the end of the day on offense. But Jordan Fuller and Wayne Knight, they all came out. I think they had almost 190 of the 216 yards. Jordan Fuller was just a battering ram, almost had another 100-yard game. I can go on and on about this, John, but I think we won the game at the line of scrimmage and we came out 14-7. That's really what matters at the end of the day.
Well, one thing we've talked about a lot on this show is that when we've seen Alonzo have success in this offense, it's been when he's had success early and has been able to grow in his confidence. And that's when you see kind of the swagger side of him, which is when I think he's at his best, is when he's playing loose, he's playing light. I just felt yesterday, right from the get-go, he just, again, was not able to get comfortable early. And I found myself wanting to see this staff, this offense, do something to get him feeling good about himself. And the way I kind of looked at yesterday's offensive performance in the first half, as I felt like our offense was playing in quicksand. And maybe it was the atmosphere, whatever. And again, like to give the context of like, there are no easy road games and you're going to have bad performances. But it seemed like in the first half, as hard as they tried, when they would try harder, just like they would to get out of quicksand, they would only sink even further. And that's when you saw some of the body language and everyone, it was obvious because you could hear everything that was being said. The vibes were just not there. And that's when you would start to hear some of the coaches get animated and you couldn't hide anything with crowd noise yesterday. You heard it all. And it just I found myself saying to multiple people, and multiple people were kind of parroting it back, that I had never seen a program that desperately needed halftime like we did yesterday on offense, because we just couldn't get anything going outside of, again, some heroic performances by Jordan Fuller, Wayne Knight, and our offensive line, aided by incredible blocking from our tight ends again yesterday, which was impressive to see. And then really, I mean, the highlight of our offensive night in the first half yesterday was the 2 fake punts that we squandered, which I'm not sure I've personally ever seen that before, and we may never see it again. It was pretty remarkable.
Well, let's talk about, John, let's talk about like the first drive of the game, right? Like, let's talk about just setting the tone there. So we had the first play of the game, which was Wayne Knight ran for 17 yards. I go, oh, thank God, we'll run the ball. Let's go. Second play was, I believe it was a play action pass. We got a roughing the passer. Either way, Alonzo missed the receiver. The next play was a run for 4 yards and then 2 straight incomplete passes, then a delay of game that we punted. And I'm just thinking of, like, we ran for 17 yards and then we immediately sort of went to our shot play, in my opinion, of that play action, where it's like, we ran for 17. Maybe let's run for another 7. Like, maybe let's run for number 8. Or hell, let's throw a quick screen and get 4 yards out of it, right? Just to get it moving. But I felt like we ran for 17 and then we would immediately go, let's have a shot play and just go deep right away with that incomplete pass. And now it's starting to snowball a little bit, right? And then we started punting, and we obviously came out of the first half with 0 points. But I think that's just an example of rhythm is a big part of this game. And getting the run game going, getting Barnett throwing to the sidelines, which I think is his best. Like, his best is when he throws to the sidelines, when he's throwing down the field. Like, that's where we just got to get his confidence up. And you mentioned that's when he gets his swagger in the game, and the offensive line believes in him. The running backs believe in him. The fan base gets involved, right? There's some more atmosphere and positivity of the game. I think I just remember that first drive and being like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about his confidence. I don't think it's just confidence in his passing game, but also, he's handing the ball off and not pulling it out and taking it outside when he really should. Michael, I think you posted the touchdown he had where he did pull out and had just a clean lane to the end zone. And I question if he's maybe second guessing, is he hesitating, putting the ball in, keeping it himself? But you talked about those two fake punts too. That was 25. Those two plays was 25% of our offense in the first half. I mean, we just didn't have it going. And I think, Coach Chesney in the post game mentioned, you had 8 guys in the box. And in addition to that, you had the safety creeping down because you knew the run was coming. So I think that makes what Jordan Fuller and Wayne Knight did even more impressive. And not just them, but what our offensive line did. So you were able to put up over 200 yards of rushing with basically the entire defense knowing it was coming. And they still, it wasn't just, little plays here and that they still had a bunch of, 5-10+ yard runs multiple times. So I continue to be amazed by Wayne Knight and Jordan Fuller. And when you look at, so again, I Sunday morning, I like to look at where the national rankings are for everything. So if you're looking at our offense, we are 10th in the country in rushing, but we're 72nd in total offense. And that's because our passing game is 126 out of 134 right now. It's just not there. I think there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks that say, oh, it's all Alonzo, or it's all the offensive coordinator, or it's all Coach Chesney, or it's all and it's just not. It's a problem. I'm not trying to gloss over it. When you're 126 out of 134, especially considering some of the competition that we've played has not been, some of the toughest games still lie ahead.
Yeah.
The passing game is an issue. It's a major issue. But I think for the armchair quarterbacks to kind of go all in on just one component, that's just not how the game of football works. And so I don't think there is just one thing to fix, one player to fix. I don't know the answer or what the fix is. And I'm not even going to pretend that I remotely know. But when you're 126 out of 134 coming off a game against a 1-4 Georgia State, a 1-4 Liberty, Georgia Southern's 2-4, 2-3 right now. These are just not good programs. And as you face the Old Dominions coming up on your schedule, you face the Washington States and
Louisiana.
That's I see. I'm doing it again. I'm already looking ahead. It's almost like that component, and I'll kind of get into the other side of the defense later when we get into that. But that one component is sticking out, and whether it's a confidence issue, whether it's a physically unable to execute issue, I don't know, but I do. Just to end this on a high note, I think the run game, the offensive line, Jordan Fuller and Wayne Knight was so much more impressive when they knew it was coming and they still couldn't stop it.
I couldn't agree more because you could just see how hard both of them ran yesterday, and they were taking shots and they just kept getting back up, which is impressive. But for me, it's again, and if there's any issue to the reaction of yesterday's contest, and again, frustration, accountability, all of those things are very legitimate for any fan to want to voice their frustration. I thought there was some, again, to your point, some very pointed and direct things, sent out online towards Alonzo. And as a Division I quarterback, that comes with the territory, especially in the NIL era. I understand it. But I continue to go back to, are we putting them both in the position to be successful? And again, and I'm going to pull it back from Alonzo and go to the time when Matthew Sluka comes in the game and then on a 4th down, and it's like we haven't shown enough to make opposing defense.
Also a long 4th and 1, right, John?
Yeah.
It was
he didn't have a chance with the play that's called. It's like everyone turns around, it's going to be a run right up the gut. And I almost was so frustrated with everybody saying like, oh, it's going to be a run right up the gut in real time. Because I'm like, no, we're going to obviously be more creative that and do something outside. And then what we do, we just kind of ran him right into the back of his offensive line and it failed. And it's like, what are we doing here? And that's where I think there is legitimate critique online of are we doing enough? And they have to answer that. And I'm sure this week those questions are going to be asked. I know Coach Chesney was asked by Katie Harper and others in the post-game press conference what is not working in this pass offense. Bob is a very savvy and well-trained media spokesperson, but you could tell his frustration was clear to those comments you made earlier about the 8 and 9. And I believe he says you have to be able to see that and you have to be able to basically react to it. And when you're not doing that, there's accountability across the board. My biggest question with this is where do you go from here? There, for all the focus on, and of course, the easiest thing in sports when you're looking at football is to say, well, you got to make a quarterback change. So what did we see yesterday in 1,000 different threads? It's got to go to Camden Coleman, or it's got to go to Matthew Sluka or J.C. Evans or whatever. But it kind of feels like the fundamentals of this offense in the passing game seem to just, I don't want to say broken, because we have had some bright spots so far in this year. But when you look big picture in the stats, they don't lie. It's an ugly scene.
Well, you know what they say, right, John? Like the most popular player on a team is the backup quarterback. right? And we have a lot of them, and we have a lot of good ones, right? But like, I think that to your point is, are the players being put in the best position possible? We don't know,
Yeah.
right? We haven't seen it. I will, like, I know we're going down this train about quarterback play and offense in general. I do want to give a shout out to our tight ends because Josh Pfeiffer came out strong again yesterday. Lakota Dupree has been a difference maker.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw it back a little bit. He kind of reminds me of like a Brian Barlow back in the day where he was a lethal blocker, but also was able to make, things happen in the pass game. And he was obviously the precipitate, the one that had the two, fake punts, I think yesterday. Just like hammering people. And they would pull the tight ends multiple times on some of these run plays, and they would just kick some of these defenders out. So I just want to give a shout out to them because they're a serious threat that we need to figure out how to utilize more in the pass game. But they're just bringing a level of nastiness and physicality. And to your point about the running backs, Wayne Knight's run that was not called a touchdown, even though I thought he did because he hit the pylon.
He did.
That was a grown. It was right in front of me. That was a grown man run, and he wanted to take it to that safety, and that was a great play because everyone in the building, all tens of them, saw that play, and the fan base got back into it. The players got back into it, and you felt that energy because he brought it on that play. He brought that we needed at that given period of time.
Well, even Jordan Fuller's post-game comments where he was just talking about, what was the change at halftime? And Jordan Fuller's, he's like, I was pissed, and I came out there and I played pissed off. And then, I think it was Katie Harper that said, in the open air broadcast booth, we could hear the pads hitting from all the way up there. So that pissed off running style that they did in the second half, it was impressive.
Yeah. Afton, I want to give you a chance just because you haven't had a chance to say anything on offense from your perspective. Anything that we have mentioned that you want to reiterate or anything on your own that you're seeing from this offense? Because I know you've been probably one of the most loud and I think justified defenders and supporters of Alonzo. And to be clear, I hope that's coming through is yes. Accountability is key for Alonzo, and in his post game, he mentioned firsthand he takes accountability and he knows he needs to perform better. But there is no more resilient player on this roster than AB3 and what he's shown from his ability to bounce back from tough performances and tough criticism and everything that comes to being a quarterback. Just would value your perspective on anything that happened on offense yesterday.
Yeah, before I get to Alonzo, one of my key takeaways from yesterday was a recurring theme going back to last year, which is when we go on the road, to whether it's a hostile environment or not, when we go on the road, we cannot handle business even when we know we're the better team. We go back to last year, we lose to ULM, which Michael said was a lot like this game. We lose at Georgia Southern. We get dominated at Georgia Southern. We lose at App State. We're better than all those three teams. But a pro to that is what Michael said before the show started, was you hate to say it, but the 2024 team would have won this game. Mm-hmm. But at halftime, we made the adjustments. And whether it's an adjustment that you like or not, it worked. All we did was run the ball. We're good at running the ball. That's our identity. But now you get to Alonzo, and you have a lot of talks. Like John said, do you put J.C. Evans in? Do you put Cam Coleman in? It's not a very popular opinion, but I've said this ever since the Charlotte game last year. Never bench Alonzo, especially after the first 3 games of last year. If you bench Alonzo last year against Charlotte, we never put up 70 points against UNC. We never get a national recognition. We never have votes in the top 25 last year. We never put up 63 on Ball State. And coming this year, you bring in Sluka. You probably don't know Alonzo is going to be back, but he is. You put in Sluka, and he could not throw the ball against Louisville in the one game he played a lot. If you didn't have Alonzo that game, we wouldn't have had any passing yards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I will see.
Alonzo brings the passing component to his game that Sluka doesn't. And Alonzo's brought so much to this team that even though this game was not good, second straight game going 11 for 22, that's not good. It's a fact. It's not a good game. But I don't think you can pull him because of how much stuff he's brought to this team and to this program in the past couple of years. And he's shown time and time again from last year that he will bounce back.
Well, one thing Coach Chesney said in the postgame, and I imagine, he's not going to give up so much because he doesn't want to tell opposing teams what our game plan is, but he was very quick to say we need to reevaluate our quick passing game to get the ball out faster, which is also going to play to his strengths of not having to deal with the rush as much and to use some of our playmakers as space. I do think his willingness to be that candid in the post game tells me, and some people say, well, that's just coach speak. I saw some people saying blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that's for somebody who does media, that he told us more than He typically does. It leads me to believe we are going to see some schematic or play calling changes. I do, because I want to give Taylor one last chance, and then we got to transition to defense. This is a bigger global issue, though, than just this game in Georgia State. Chase Kitty did a great job yesterday with one of his tweets that I think just speaks to an issue more broadly about halftime of JMU football scores in non-home games versus non-P4 teams since the start of 2024. I think it's worth reading. JMU 9, Charlotte 7, ULM 14, JMU 13, Georgia Southern 21, JMU nothing, ODU 24, JMU 21, App State 24, JMU 17, Western Kentucky 14, JMU 7, JMU 10, Liberty 10, and Georgia State 7, JMU nothing. So this is where I feel like there is an opportunity for our staff to pull back and go, what is not going right in these games, in our preparations and our planning, that's leading to these tough starts? I think that is a bigger question. I think you're going to start to see more people ask, especially as we go not through this week, but then the next time we have one of these tough road games, and we've got some tough ones coming up. Got that trip to Texas State. You've got a trip to Marshall. You've got a trip to a really seemingly bad Coastal Carolina team that now suddenly in the back of your mind, you'd be easy like Taylor to go like, well, that's a win, the penciled in, but you just don't know when we continue to have these struggles on the road.
Listen, next week is week 7. So when you get into the conversations of whether or not you bench a quarterback, you're starting at week 1 with an offense. You're hitting the reset button midseason. So if fans are having that conversation, realize the consequences that would come with something like that. So that's number 1. Number 2, let's just talk objectively. I already mentioned this. Objectively, we are one of the bottom 10 passing offenses in the country. And objectively, that will not win us the Sun Belt Championship. It just won't. So that's what's objective. Now, this is where I'm going to turn to the coaching staff. The guys that have been with these guys 24/7, 365 days a year, that are in the meeting rooms, that are watching film, that are in the practice. Call me a homer if I'm saying I'm going to default to them in their judgment on what to do. And if they continue to ride Alonza, I'm going to default to them and say that's the best option. And we've all seen good Alonza, and good Alonza can win a Sun Belt championship. The question we're asking is why the Alonza that we saw yesterday was continuing to struggle. And not just Alonza. I shouldn't say Alonza. It's the passing game. Why is the passing game continue to not be good enough to be a championship caliber team? So we can speak objectively to what the problem is, but as terms of what the solution is, I just don't feel like I'm in a position to say that. Call me a homer but the fact is we do have a deep quarterback room. You know, we have a lot of talent. So it's not like, we just don't have anyone behind him. We have some talented quarterbacks in the room. We have J.C. Evans. We have Sluka. You know, obviously Coleman, who's come in. So when I see the coaching staff continue to go behind him, my thing says they see more, they know more. And again, the consequences of what it would mean to reset your offense midseason, that doesn't play out well hardly ever. So that's all I have to say.
And Taylor, to add to that, we also have all conference players at wide receiver, right? We brought in a haul of experienced receivers that, yes, they're all conference players at the FCS level, but we've seen that translate at least to the Sun Belt. What is going on with the passing game, right? Is it a systematic piece? Is it timing? Is it chemistry? We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. AB3 was nursing a knee all summer versus throwing with the receivers, right? And just like getting the timing out. Is it that? We need to figure that out this week. And good news, we're at Bridgeforth, right? We're in front of our hometown. It's on ESPN2. It's a whiteout, I believe. We have another opportunity, which I think is a plus on our side. John, should we switch to the defense?
Yeah, can I make one last comment? This is my last comment. It's going to be short. All I ask, and this is, I say this for myself because I want to be consistent. We live in a world that wants black and white solutions to nuanced problems. So the next time somebody is ready to fire off a tweet saying like, insert player name X sucks, insert player name Y, get off the team. There was a lot of that yesterday. There are so many layers to this that all have to work well for this program to hum where we all want it to go. And where I get optimistic is as bad as our pass offense has been to date, and that's not me just saying it's bad, it's this coaching staff, the players saying it's not where it needs to be. With as good as our offense is performing in the run game, if we can get to moderate passing ability, even okay passing ability, maybe move up 10 slots in the passing game, I still believe everything that we have set our goals out for this season are in front of us. I don't care about the college football playoff. I've never judged success of this season solely off that. I know there's a whole portion of the internet that will yell at me and say, look at the American. They're so much better. We have no chance. I saw people saying it doesn't matter because we're not going to win out anyway. Like, our goal, number one, is to win a Sun Belt championship. And we're 4-1, 2-0 in conference play. For all the analysis today of what went wrong on offense, I'm going to throw this out there. Call me a homer. I don't care about being called a homer. I relish it now at this point. There's also the possibility that, sometimes you just don't have a good game. And it's a bad game, and there are a lot of factors that come into play. I think just as much as Taylor said all year of like, we kind of don't know what this team is yet because we haven't played ODU. We have did we play down to our competition and next week we're firing all cylinders again? I can't answer that, but I also can't say no, that's not the case. And I'm going to choose because I want to, and it's my life and it's the show that I hit the record button on. I'm still optimistic about this offense. I'm still optimistic about Alonzo, and I do think we can get this ship righted because I have not lost confidence in any of the decision makers pulling the strings. Call that whatever you want. That's just my opinion, and it's honesty. So let's switch to the defense because I think now we can talk about all the good of yesterday. Because after a slightly rocky start, oh boy, for me, everything changes on one play, and it's Jacob Thomas making a shoestring tackle, which got a lot of buzz online. But for those in the stadium, you saw what happened after that shoestring tackle, and it's Jacob Thomas writhing in what was clearly significant pain. And what does he do? He gets up again and again, and he gets back in the game to join a defensive unit that anytime they have been pushed against the wall, not only do they rise up, they find a different gear. I don't personally think, I can't cite, and I would love to hear anybody's opinion in this panel. I can't remember a JMU defense that tackles with as much authority and determination and just violence as this group. It was incredible to see yesterday. The floor is yours to anybody who wants to take it. Shout out to this unit is a unit for the ages, and it's been a true joy and pleasure to cover and watch.
Yeah. More importantly, it's the tackling from the entire defense, right? And particularly the defensive backs. Like seeing like the physicality that Elijah Culp has brought to the game, DJ Barksdale. And like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Justin Eaglin might be our most improved player. Like all across it, he runs fast. He's super long. He's a perfect sort of like man corner that we want. But his issue was tackling in the run game, and he's changed his game completely and just bringing that physicality. So defensively, I think we gave up 249 yards, 212 in the passing game, which by the way is all Georgia State could have done. And again, we hold them to 37 yards rushing on 17 or 22 attempts. I think they just completely abandoned the rush game, which is a testament to the defensive line, the linebackers, etc. But I do want to give a shout out to Coach Hitch, because after we gave that touchdown, I forgot first or was it the first quarter? Yeah, in the first quarter. Let's just say
family show. This is a family show.
Let's just say he made sure the defense knew his opinion on the situation, and they responded. I'll just leave it at that.
Yes.
And everyone heard it.
Very vocally.
Dave Riggert heard it from 150 yards away. And they responded to it, which I thought was great. And after, I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead with your point.
You're good. So we're only 5 games in, but I think it is pretty safe to say this is one of the best defenses we've ever had. The fact that we talk about how poorly the offense played, that means we gave Georgia State the ball so many times. And for them to only score 7 points is incredible, because the amount of times that any defensive player could have hung their head and say, why are we already back on the field 5 seconds after they just got off the field from a 3-and-out, could have happened 20 times yesterday. They did the complete opposite. It was 3-and-out after 3-and-out. As Michael said, the aggressive tackling is incredible. You saw on the 4th down, I think it was 4th and 13, end of the game, they checked it down, and Elijah Culp had an incredible open field tackle. You had Justin Egan with a couple incredible open field tackles. They're just so harped in and zoned in on every single tackle. It's incredible to me how few mistakes they've made. But there are some cons I saw from yesterday. We got beat a couple of times. There was a lot of dropped passes by Georgia State yesterday. But overall, I think it's safe to say that this defense is one of the best we've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia State was a top 4 passing offense coming into this game, and I mentioned this last episode. They were top 4. That 1-3 record they had coming into this, it was 3 losses to Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and Memphis. Part of me says, is there another team in the Sun Belt that also wouldn't have been 1-3 playing? Yeah. And I'm going to include us and Old Dominion in that. So I don't necessarily think Georgia State's one of the top teams, but I don't think they're as bad as that record showed, being a top 4 passing offense in the league. I mean, just these are the passing numbers that they put up against their other opponents. They put up 69 yards against Ole Miss, which that was impressive, but they put up 340 yards of passing against Memphis, 288 yards against Murray State, and 258 yards against Vanderbilt. So we held them the second lowest all year. And then, Ted Hurst's 52-yard catch, that was a large portion of the 212 that they put up against us. So the defense right now nationally, 12th in rushing defense, 9th in passing defense, 13th in scoring defense, 4th in total defense overall, just behind Oklahoma, Mizzou, and Ohio State. So this defense has continued to perform to, I agree with Afton, one of the best defenses, if not the best defense that we've ever seen. They have a bunch of challenges coming up. And, a lot of people are getting, after what happened yesterday, because everyone instantly reacts after just one game. Everyone's getting kind of nervous about the Old Dominion game. And listen, I don't, yes, our offense has concerns. Old Dominion still has to score on us, So I've yet to see anyone be able to go ahead, John.
I'm so excited you brought the Old Dominion game up, because I'm actually super stoked that for once in a home game against a rival like ODU, we might be considered an underdog.
Sure.
I think that, to me, you want to get the best
out
of
I hope so. I hope
we are.
Yeah.
Let's be the first to put it out. We're an underdog going into that game. See, threw it out there on the internet. I think that is going to rally our fans. I think it's going to rally everyone who has tickets for that game to make sure they're in their seats early. I think that message is going to be conveyed to the students. I have a feeling Coach Chesney is going to do his job in the press conferences and make sure that's known. You got to beat Louisiana, get this win, take them 100% serious. But going into that ODU game, I don't think I've been this excited about a JMU game since, I guess.
Well, think about it. It was a 2023 against ODU. It was a homecoming again. I think we broke the attendance record that night, right? It was a night game at 7:00. Yep. So I think, that's got a huge potential for us. But bringing it back to this game, though, I do want to give a shout out to the defensive line, because I think we also showed the depth that we had. And we've been talking about all year. But when Georgia State completely abandoned the run game and they start throwing, we brought in guys like the Kells Bushes into the game that haven't played too much to give a little bit more of a spark on the inside. We brought in, Sahir West had another sack, which I thought, and I wasn't on the show last week, but his sack against Georgia Southern, I think, was a big confidence booster for him, because he finally landed it, right? He had another sack this past weekend. And I think it's like being able to rotate guys. And I'll be honest, there's a little bit of area improvement, because I felt, John, you were there with me, the rotations were starting to get a little bit funky. We were doing 4 to 7 line changes, and some people didn't know if they were supposed to be in or whatnot. So we got to fix there. But the ability to play so many bodies in the field and keep them fresh, because you could tell Georgia State was leaning on them a little bit, but we were able to find a way through it. And then the linebackers, after you talked about, or someone talked about earlier, the body language. And yet, even though we were having 3 and outs, you saw the Spinagattis, you saw the Trent Hendricks get up on their seat right away, grab their helmet and said, LFG, let's go, defense on the field. Like, they were ready to rock and roll, and you saw it. And they played with a reckless abandon that I think was fantastic. And they knew this is a game they had to lean on. And just that they brought us a sense of a swagger and personality to the team, which I thought was fantastic. Honestly, a little PTSD, but this brings me back to like 2009, 2010, 2011 JMU Mickey ball, where if we didn't have the Stephon Robertsons on defense, if we didn't have the Lavander Jones on defense, those teams barely put up 13 to 14 points a game, yet we still had winning records. This kind of has that feeling, but I think who was the point? Taylor's point. If we're just an average passing team, we can get very dangerous very quickly.
Michael, you touched on the swagger. I know John talked about it too with Alonzo. The last couple of drives, you saw after the offense scored their second touchdown, the defense had swagger all game. But then all of a sudden the offense did too. Offense started humming. Defense started playing even better, starting to get to the quarterback a little bit more, getting them behind the sticks. And then all of a sudden Georgia State was having false start after false start. And I know Taylor wants to talk about the penalties, But all I'll say about the team's confidence is when we start scoring, when the offense starts scoring consistently, it's dangerous because then everybody gets into a groove. The defense is always in a groove. And as Taylor said, talking about the ODU game, there still has not been a game this year that's proved to me that if there's not a team left on our schedule that can score 2 touchdowns against us. I don't see it. Like Taylor said, ODU still has to score against us. I don't know another team that can score more than once against us because this defense has been so dominant. And other teams can prove me wrong about this. But from what I've seen, our defense is that dominant, and it will be in the Sun Belt.
Well, and that's the shame, talking about it, with our defense performing so well, we're having these offensive struggles. And as some of y'all have mentioned, the penalties. I knew it was bad. I don't think I knew it was this bad when I looked it up. We're 123 out of 134 for penalties right now in the country. We've had 43 for over 400 yards. So that's 400 yards you're taking away in addition to not having the offensive output that you need. And so we've talked about our defense being so good, but you've got to give them the support that they need to continue this level and this caliber of performance throughout the entire season, which does also lead me to real quick with special teams yesterday. We've talked about how that's been, a bit of a question mark leading early in the season, but in addition to those 2 back-to-back fake punts, of the 5 punts that we had yesterday, he averaged over 42 yards a punt, and he had 4 of them pinned inside the 20-yard line. So I just want to give a quick shout out to the special teams. In addition to, anytime Wayne Knight's back there receiving kicks, I'm going to go with John's preseason prediction that we're going to have some fireworks at some point this season, and it's going to come at a very critical point of a game.
Oh, so fireworks indeed. I think we were so close, 2 or 3 times. I mean, with Justin Eaglin almost jumped that route. I think DJ almost jumped that crossing route right in the middle of the field. It's going to happen, right? It's eventually going to happen. And I also want to say this. I want to shout out to Gannon Weathersby, leading the team in tackles. He had 9 tackles on Saturday. Atlanta native, by the way, who's just been a demon for us, which is fantastic. And then also Tyler Brown, who I don't know who's watching on the internet, but I think it's with PFF. He's probably one of the top 5 rated safeties in the country right now, just playing out of his mind. So I think this defense has a lot that they can bring. There's a lot they can improve, right? I think this is 2 weeks in a row now they haven't had a turnover, so we have an opportunity there. Aiden Gobira had another couple, I think 2 or 3 tackles for loss, and continues to improve game after game. And again, like I have to mention, if we can put at least 14 points on the board, I believe that it's gonna be hard for others to beat us. I thought it was a good wrinkle that Coach Hitch did, that he had DJ actually follow Ted Hurst across the field. DJ typically lines up in the slot, but we would see him outside. He would follow a man coverage all day, which he played really well. And if you think about the size difference, I think Ted Hurst comes in at 6'4". I mean, DJ's 5'9", 5'10". He had
and Coach Chesney called him out in the press conference afterwards. He said
exactly. It was like he's a foot shorter. And he was in his hip all game, right? And I thought that was a key. We have to stop Ted Hurst. He is their offense. Let's call it what it is. TJ Finley might look really good throwing the ball in shorts, but Ted Hurst is their offense. And I think we found a way to shut him down, and it completely changed their game. I think their tight end had 7 catches because that's all they can go through at that point.
Yeah. I want to give one last shout out to a player really quick that I think deserves, because his contributions may have been one of the more underrated aspects of a win yesterday. Patrick Ray, our punter, that punt down to the 1, backing Georgia State up to their goal line, which then their penalty issues came into play, and then they got a false start on the goal line. Then they were at the 1/4-inch line, which is funny because the center just moved the ball right back to where it was originally. I laughed at that. But yeah, and he's had some up and down moments, but a big performance from him as well yesterday, and just yeah, that matters, and we need to get great special teams play. So shout out to Drew Cannon, shout out to the entire special teams group, and then finally shout out to the fans. They became part of the game. I'm not saying Georgia State couldn't hear themselves on the field. Let's not overstate it. But I think it gave our defense the energy it needed in the second half when there were some big moments and that game was still in doubt. The JMU faithful allowed themselves to be heard and kind of was a little bit of push in the sails of our defense yesterday. I thought that mattered. Any final thoughts before we kind of move towards some news and notes? We've got to look forward to, obviously, Louisiana this week. I know, Afton, you've got some commentary on your kids' picks. We'll get to that. Any last thoughts from anybody on this game?
Yeah, I would say the adjustments that have been made have been a lot different than last year. I saw early in the game, maybe we're taking it from, I know Taylor loves when I talk about Louisville, like how he talks about UTSA. Maybe we're taking this from Louisville, but we were in the pistol multiple times yesterday. That was not happening last year. We were in the diamond key multiple times yesterday. Love to see that. And then, but I don't know. I love seeing the adjustments by Dean Kennedy. I love seeing new formations, mixing it up, because Georgia State has not seen us in the pistol the whole year, all of last year. They've seen none of it. So it's just a new wrinkle that I like to see him throw in there.
Yeah. We might have to throw it away though after seeing what happened. But I get your point.
I do like the wrinkle. I do like the wrinkle.
But I get you. I'll give the defense line one more praise here, because I think at the end of the game, I think the left tackle for Georgia State had 3 or 4 of those 5 false starts, and you could tell that we knew something was going on with his head. So we were sending Xavier Holmes, we were sending Gobira. We kept rotating guys, and he knew, number 9 knew that he had a matchup there with that left tackle, and he had he was jumping in quite often there at the end. So just shout out to the defensive line, just keeping constant pressure, play after play.
All right, Afton, I'm going to go to you because we gave you a homework assignment because Taylor was at Tech yesterday. Michael and I went on planes and everything else. Give us a little bit of look forward to what fans can expect to see from this week's opponent in Louisiana and at noon again inside Bridgeport Stadium on ESPN2.
Yeah, so earlier today, I went a little deep dive in Louisiana, and I don't really want to say what went wrong so far this season, but that's what I'm going to go with. Why are they 2-3? They were the preseason front runners in the West. Well, they had a quarterback transfer, Walker Howard. He transferred from LSU to Ole Miss, and now he's at Louisiana. So I guess he was supposed to be their whole offense, but he had an oblique injury to start the year in a 14-12 loss against Rice, and he's out for the year. So now they put in a freshman, Daniel Beal, I think is how you say it. He's not played well. In a couple of games, he's 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, a 13.6 QBR. It's rough. But he played not last week, they had a bye week yesterday, but the week before, and the comeback win against Marshall, he played awful. He had a 3.5 QBR, so he got benched going into the 4th. And then a sophomore quarterback is a great name, Lunch Winfield. That's an all-name roster right there.
He's going to be performing at lunchtime on Saturday.
Exactly. So he played well. He led a 17-point comeback in the 4th quarter, 54-51 win against Marshall to give them their second win, first FBS win of the year. So I would assume we will be seeing Lunch Winfield in Bridgeport Stadium being the starter. But you kind of have to feel it for them, having their starting quarterback out after the first game with their high hopes. But it seems like this Lunch Winfield guy is pretty good. He had 124 yards and a touchdown in 1 quarter. So it's pretty good. He seems like he's solid. Sophomore quarterback, a little bit of experience. But that's kind of all I've gotten them. They've had a kind of hard schedule, a really inconsistent team. They started the year off with no offense, and then all of a sudden they're scoring 54 points against Marshall. So I guess their identity is inconsistency, not a very good identity. But they are seeming to find a quarterback, which is good. Lunch Winfield.
Well, there'll be a lot of conversation about what we can expect from Louisiana this week. We're just going to be fully transparent. We don't want to give you false information. None of us had the time to do as deep of a dive into Louisiana as we would feel compelled to offer you today. So there's obviously going to be a lot of coverage of this week. We'll have some stuff on social. Afton's going to do a little bit more homework, and maybe his midweek video is a deeper dive into Louisiana. Afton, I know you wanted to bring up one point because we have focused on your kids' picks. They are not going well. So we've got to send you back to school because you are literally in school. So I'm going to blame that. You're just super focused on your studies right now, and that's why you haven't been able. Anything you want to say about the kids' picks?
Yeah, I'm sorry for you betting people out there. I've let you down. I went 0-3 last week, which I think I've realized I'm not chaotic enough. So give me Washington State to go into Ole Miss and beat number 4 in the country. No, that's not happening. But what I will say is Bama rolls Missouri. Put that on the calendar. Indiana, you can't smoke their cig. He's going in to smoke in Ozen Stadium, smoke in Oregon. Indiana's being ranked number 1 in the country next Sunday after they beat number 2 in the country. Temple is going to have a big group of 5 win against Navy. And in the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma, without their quarterback, John Mater, I think is how you say it, the former Washington State player is going to go and beat Texas, who just had a disappointing loss against Florida. So Texas is going to be on a 2-game losing streak. Those are my 4 games for the week. Hopefully, I don't let these betting people down again. It's been rough.
Luckily, Afton's cannot legally gamble, so these picks are just there's no risk to them. So enjoy the chaos as always, guys. I know it's been a great hour, a good conversation. Final thoughts just on anything that we talked about, or anything else you want to put out to the universe. Again, another big week of JMU football ahead of us.
I'll go first because I'm all Botetourt all the time, right? Southwest Virginia represent. Want to make sure that I'll give a shout out to the Roanoke alumni chapter. Had 50 plus, I think, people at their watch party last night. I know they had 50 plus people for just a happy hour when they kind of got things going again. And so, not to put JMU on blast, but the Duke Club Caravan and the presidential tour kind of keep skipping Southwest Virginia. There's a lot of JMU folks down here. We got 4 JMU flags on my street. So just a reminder to JMU. I want to give a shout out to Jim Pomeroy, who has been doing a lot to get that chapter up and running. But I know we're in tech country, but there's some good folks down here. So go us.
There you go. Michael.
I'm going to give the most boring end of show analysis on next week. And I'm just going to leave it with this. It's all about us, right? At the end of the day, next week, white out on ESPN, noon game in front of the best fans on earth. We got to think about what do we need to do to win that game. And it's about us, right? It's about the one-on-one matchups, whether it's blocking, whether it's the receiver eyeing which DB is going to block down the field or making that first down catch, or it's that one-on-one tackle on the outside that we saw our team do so well on Saturday. It's all about us. And at the end of the day, that's all we can worry about. I think this kid, Afton mentioned the quarterback named Lunch. I think he brings some athleticism to the game. So we got a run game to think about there, or a +1 run game, as Coach Leslie like to says. So it's all about us. We just got to do our job, dominate the line of scrimmage. And what do they say? Defense with championships, and people that can run the ball win games. That's all we have to do next Saturday.
Boom. Afton.
I'll just say wear white, show ESPN what JMU Nation's made of, and let's beat Louisiana so bad that we forget about what happened yesterday. That's all I have to say.
There we go. And my final thought, we're 4-1. We are 2-0 in Sunbelt play. I don't know of a JMU fan out there that wouldn't have signed up to be where we are with this record right now. It all lays out in front of us. And again, we're at home. We have an ability now as fans to lift this offense up. Everybody said what they want to say already on Twitter. If you have any last final thoughts, get them out there on Sunday. Fire them off if you have anything negative to say. And let's rally behind this team, because let's go win a damn Sunbelt championship. Let's be 5-1. Let's have everything in front of us for ODU. God knows, who knows? Maybe game day gets thrown out again. You never know. People are throwing it out there. I'll throw it out there. Let's get to 5-1 so that we have everything ahead of us for that game at ODU, because it's going to be fun. You never know what happens in a rivalry game. You never know if they have their game that maybe they don't fire on all cylinders. Anything's possible. That's the chaos of college football. Embrace the chaos. Enjoy it all. Last final shout out to everyone who made a bad situation yesterday, a kind of quirky game environment fun. Can't say it enough. So many people said they appreciate what we do each and every week. And hey, we do it for you, and we appreciate that positive feedback, appreciate that support. Shout out to Delvin Joyce and the To The House podcast guys. We appreciated him joining us yesterday for our final fast thoughts after the game. It's always fun to interact with some of the other podcasts in the space. Final shout out to our sponsors, Skyline Financial Partners, Champions Drive Bourbon, Where's Woody, Purple Nation, Shoker Enterprises, the Dead Meat Society, Outdoor Kitchen Creations, and Valley Road Vineyards. One last shout out. Happy birthday, Michael's dad. I know you've got some festivities today to get to. Go enjoy that. However you're spending your Sunday, thanks for spending a little bit of time with us. And as always, go Dukes. We'll talk to you next week for another episode of JMU Sound Off.